Yes, firing Brian Johnson in the offseason is definitely a viable option right now with the circumstances that the Eagles have been going through, mainly in the last 6 games. We can talk about it all day and Nick Sirianni be on the hot seat. But I'm thinking that this could hurt the Eagles in the next year's season and could affect Jalen Hurts' development. Let's talk about it. Yo, what's up, Eagles Nation? What's up, Sports Nation? It's your boy, Cool Eagle, back here in another video. Just want to come talk to you guys because, whoa, do we have a lot to talk about today in the world of Eagles football? I know the narrative surrounding hashtag Fire Brian Johnson is Nick Sirianni on the hot seat, a huge hot topic right now. You have a lot of Eagles content creators outside of myself, good ones and respectable ones, talking about firing Nick Sirianni is definitely a possibility. You hear it on a lot of sports broadcasts that, although not a high probability, is definitely something that could be being talked about um, behind the scenes because we know what's going on in Dallas with Jerry Jones coming on air talking about Mike McCarthy's job definitely could be on the line if the Dallas Cowboys don't at least get to the NFC Championship, and how a lot of sportscasters were talking about how that was a bad idea to do it publicly. Although we do know when you have rosters like the Dallas Cowboys and the Philadelphia Eagles, there are very high expectations. For any GM and head coach combination to utilize as much talent as possible, just because the league is just ever changing. Super Bowl windows are very small and few far in between, and you just got to get the most out of your talent because contracts start kicking in, disputes, injuries, like all this stuff just becomes a huge factor when you think about not maximizing the talent, right? So firing Nick Sirianni, Brian Johnson, I don't feel like would be a good idea right now. And I know why a lot of Eagles fans are saying it. Okay, it is very reasonable to think this way. It's understandable, and it's a respected take, whether you disagree with it or not. Just because of what happened in the last 6 games, we're the only 10-1 team in history to not win 12 games. I know a lot of people talk about the 86 Jets, but that was all before, the 21st century. Like we're talking about in the last 24 years of this league, we're the only 10-1 team to not win 12 games. Something that also does not inspire confidence in Eagles fans going into this postseason on the road to Tampa Bay. Um, but I don't think firing Nick Sirianni and Brian Johnson in the offseason would really make the change that a lot of Eagles fans think. Because we got to think about this too. This is another offensive coordinator that Jalen Hurts is going to have to go through in his tenure as a football quarterback. Uh, Going back to his college days, his freshman year of 2016, he had Lane Kiffin as his offensive coordinator at Alabama his freshman year. Then he goes to his sophomore year with Steve Sarkisian, and then of course Brian Daboll, the likes. And then his senior year, he transfers to Oklahoma, where now he's under Lincoln Riley and the staff for a year. So, and then coming into the league, he's being thrown into a situation with Doug Peterson, Mike Groh, Press Taylor, and those likes in the end of the Carson Wentz era, and having to learn that offense on the fly after Carson Wentz got benched in that I think the Saints or Green Bay Packers game. Then having to learn that offense, and then Doug Peterson gets fired, and then it's Nick Sirianni the next year, and then he has to learn that offense, and he was struggling the first 8 weeks of that season to where the first year offensive coordinator for the Eagles and Shane Steichen had to switch the whole playbook to a run style to accommodate Jalen's first year starter like weaknesses, man, because we Jalen Hurts of 2021 was not the Jalen Hurts of 2022. Like definitely more good with his feet, better in the pocket, and then 2023 we know he is now like one of the top quarterbacks in the league, definitely best in the division still. If you look at his accolades in his first couple years starting, but outside of that, now you're talking about firing Brian Johnson right? And then having to look on the market for offensive coordinators who are already jumping into head coach candidacy. Like we talk about the Dave Canales, offensive coordinator for Tampa Bay. We talk about Brian Callahan, the offensive coordinator for Cincinnati. You talk about Eric Bieniemy, the offensive coordinator for Washington, and then John Harbaugh coming out of Michigan. Although he is an offensive mind, that would be good for this team. I mean, I would definitely give the house for John Harbaugh's offensive mind as our coordinator. But like him and those other three guys that I named, like those guys are getting a head coach candidacies. You know what I'm saying? Like, there's no way that we can just ask these guys to come to the Eagles. And now you also have to worry about them being a threat to Nick Sirianni's job, and because like they're probably going to be more, knowledgeable about certain offensive schemes than he is. And, it's just, like it's a man thing, you know what I'm saying? Like, but although we can ask him to put his ego aside, but addressing that, then you have to have Jalen Hurts learn a whole new offensive scheme, a whole new drop back, different, and then just developing that relationship with Jalen Hurts. So, like, we talk about that again. And Jalen Hurts, we know the first year coming in with Doug Peterson and Mike Groh. Although it was just more of that, like we were just tanking at that time. Jalen Hurts wasn't that quarterback he was of today. He wasn't even that, in 2021. And then we saw what he progressed to in the second year system of Shane Steichen, and just developing himself in the pocket. We saw what he was then, leading us to the Super Bowl. And then now this year being talked about one of the top quarterbacks, elite quarterbacks in the league. So if you keep Brian Johnson and just give these guys a second chance, we have the potential to see a jump of Jalen Hurts in this offense. And again, like Nick Sirianni has already came on the air and talked about that this is his offense. This is not Brian Johnson's offense. So maybe Brian Johnson couldn't even put his spin of anything into the offense, and he's just calling Nick Sirianni's plays based off what Nick Sirianni said. So if this is the case, maybe Nick Sirianni takes a back seat in the offensive schemes, and maybe we actually get to see Brian Johnson's offense going into next year and seeing how Jalen Hurts just makes that leap. So I'm curious to hear what you guys think about that. We got more content on the way talking about the keys to beating Tampa Bay. Just waiting for that Friday injury report, and then hey man, like we're on from there. But make sure you guys like, subscribe, get this content out. Love doing with you guys, and we'll talk soon.